The wagon wheel splintered with a crack that echoed across the empty prairie like a gunshot. Sarah Whitmore clutched the reins as the cart lurched sideways, her dead husband's cookware clattering in the back, the only possession she had left after the bank seized their homestead. Dust coated her black mourning dress, turning it the color of the hopeless Nebraska earth. 3 days without food, 2 nights sleeping under stars that offered no comfort. The wedding ring on her finger had grown loose from weight loss, sliding around as she gripped the useless leather straps. She stood there on the rutted trail, miles from anywhere, watching the sun bleed orange across the horizon. Her throat burned with thirst. Her stomach had stopped growling yesterday, replaced by a hollow ache that made her lightheaded. The broken wheel mocked her with its jagged spokes, just like everything else in her life since Thomas died of fever 6 weeks ago, leaving her with debts she never knew existed and a brother-in-law who'd tried to claim her as payment. A rider appeared on the ridge, silhouetted against the dying light. Sarah's hand moved instinctively to the small pistol in her pocket, the one thing she'd hidden from the creditors. But the horse moved with an easy grace, its rider sitting tall and relaxed in the saddle. As he drew closer, she could make out a broad-shouldered man in his early 30s, weathered leather vest over a work shirt, a black Stetson, shading eyes that seemed to assess everything in a single glance. Before we continue with Sarah and this mysterious stranger's story, I'd love to ask you to take a moment to subscribe to the From Wild West channel and give this video a like. It truly means so much to us and motivates us to keep bringing you quality stories like this one. Your support helps us continue sharing these tales of love and courage from the American frontier. Thank you. "Wheels broken," the stranger said, his voice like gravel and honey mixed together. He dismounted with fluid ease, his boots hitting the ground without sound, despite his size. Up close, Sarah could see the lines around his eyes, laugh lines mixed with the kind that came from squinting into sun and trouble. A scar cut through his left eyebrow, giving him a dangerous look that his gentle movements contradicted. "I can see that," Sarah replied, hating how her voice cracked. She straightened her spine, trying to salvage some dignity. "I'll manage." His eyes, deep brown with flecks of gold in the fading light, traveled over the broken wheel, the thin horse that looked as exhausted as she felt, and finally to her face. Something shifted in his expression. Not pity, something that looked almost like recognition, though they'd never met. "Ma'am, managing and surviving are 2 different things out here." He walked to his horse and retrieved a canteen, holding it out to her. "Drink first, then we'll talk about that wheel." Sarah's pride warred with her thirst. Thirst won. She took the canteen with trembling hands and drank deeply, the water so cold and sweet it brought tears to her eyes. She hadn't realized how close to the edge she'd been until that moment. "Thank you," she whispered, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand. "You got a name?" he asked, already kneeling by the broken wheel, running his hands over the damage with the expertise of someone who understood how things were built. "Sarah Whitmore. Widow Whitmore, I suppose." The title still felt foreign on her tongue. "And you are?" "Cole Bennett." He glanced up at her, and for the first time, she saw something like amusement in those serious eyes. "I've got a ranch about 5 miles west. You were headed anywhere?" The word came out before she could stop it. "Away." He nodded slowly, as if that made perfect sense. "This wheel needs replacing, not fixing. You got tools? Spare parts?" Sarah laughed, and it sounded slightly hysterical even to her own ears. I have 3 cooking pots, a frying pan, 2 dresses, and my dead husband's Bible. The creditors took everything else. Cole stood, brushing dust from his knees. The sun had nearly set now, painting the sky in shades of purple and crimson. In the dying light, his face looked carved from stone, all hard angles and determination. "Can you cook?" The question caught her off guard. "What? Those pots you mentioned. Can you use them? Make something worth eating?" Yes. I was known for my cooking back in—" She stopped herself. Back in the life that no longer existed. Back when she'd been someone's wife, someone's daughter, someone who mattered. "My ranch hand quit last week. Couldn't stand my coffee or my beans. Said he'd rather eat dirt." Cole walked to his horse and swung back into the saddle with easy grace. "I need someone who can cook for the crew. Pays fair, room, board, and $30 a month. You'd have your own cabin, separate from the bunkhouse. Respectable." Sarah stared at him. "You're offering me a job? You don't even know me." "I know you're alone, broke, and about a day away from dying out here." His voice was matter-of-fact, not cruel. "I know you've got pride, which means you'll work hard. And I know that look in your eyes. You're running from something, not running to it. That tells me you've got survival instinct." "What if I'm a terrible cook?" she asked, suspicious of his generosity. Cole's mouth quirked in something that might have been a smile. "Then I'll teach you to be better. But I don't think that's the case." He held out his hand. "Come on. My horse can carry 2, and we'll send someone back for your things tomorrow. Storm's coming in. You can smell it in the air." Sarah looked at his outstretched hand, calloused and strong. She thought about Thomas, who'd been gentle but weak, unable to stand up to his own brother. She thought about her father, who'd sold her into marriage like livestock. She thought about the empty prairie, stretching endlessly in all directions, and the cold night ahead. "I don't take charity," she said quietly. "Good. I'm not offering it." Cole's eyes held hers. "I'm offering work. Hard work. You'll earn every cent. But you'll eat. You'll have shelter, and no one on my land will bother you. You have my word." "Why?" the question burst from her. "Why help me?" For a long moment, he was silent. Then, "Because 3 years ago, someone helped me when I needed it. Figured it was time to pass it along." He leaned down slightly, his hand still extended. "We all need saving sometimes, Mrs. Whitmore. Trick is knowing when to let someone help." Thunder rumbled in the distance. Sarah's practical mind knew she had no real choice. She'd die out here alone. But something else made her reach for his hand. The steadiness in his eyes, the quiet strength that didn't need to boast. His palm was warm and rough against hers, and when he pulled her up behind him on the horse, his body was solid as oak. "Hold on," he said simply, and kicked the horse into a smooth canter. Sarah wrapped her arms around his waist, feeling the muscles of his back through his shirt. He smelled of leather and wood smoke, and something clean. Soap, maybe, or just the wind. The prairie flew by beneath them as the first fat raindrops began to fall. In the distance, lightning forked across the darkening sky. "That freeze you said," Sarah spoke against his shoulder, her voice barely audible over the thunder. "About needing saving. I don't need saving. I just need a chance." She felt rather than saw his nod. "Fair enough, then I'm offering a chance." The rain came harder, soaking them both, but Cole didn't slow. Sarah closed her eyes and held on, letting herself trust this stranger for reasons she couldn't quite name. Behind them, her broken wagon and her old life disappeared into the storm. Ahead, lit by occasional lightning strikes, she could see the dark shapes of buildings emerging from the prairie. The Bennett Ranch sprawled across a small valley, protected by a ring of cottonwood trees that bent in the wind. Even in the storm, Sarah could see it was prosperous. A large main house with a wraparound porch, several outbuildings, corrals with good fencing. Cole rode straight to a small cabin set apart from the others, dismounting and lifting her down, with hands that lingered just a moment at her waist. "This is yours," he said, pushing open the door. Inside was simple but clean. A iron bedstead with a quilt, a small stove, a table and chair, even curtains on the single window. "Tomorrow I'll show you the kitchen. For tonight, there's bread and cheese in that basket, and the well's just outside. Get some rest." He turned to leave, but Sarah caught his sleeve. "Mr. Bennett, Cole, I don't understand. Why do you live alone in such a big house? Where's your wife?" His face went carefully blank. "I had a wife once. Fever took her 2 winters back, along with our baby girl. Haven't seen fit to remarry." He touched the brim of his hat. "Sleep well, Mrs. Whitmore. Morning comes early." He was gone before she could respond, melting into the rain-soaked darkness. Sarah stood in the doorway of the cabin, watching lightning illuminate the valley. She thought about Cole Bennett's haunted eyes when he mentioned his lost family, and she understood then why he'd stopped for a stranger on the road. They were both ghosts, she realized, both haunted by the people they used to be. The difference was, maybe here they could both learn to be alive again. The rooster's crow dragged Sarah from sleep before dawn. Her body ached from days of exposure, but the bed had been soft, the cabin warm. She'd eaten half the bread and all the cheese before exhaustion claimed her. Now, in the gray pre-dawn light, she dressed in her least tattered dress and found a pump outside with cold, clear water to wash her face. The main house loomed larger in daylight. Not ostentatious, but well-built, with a stone chimney and glass windows that spoke of prosperity. Sarah walked toward it, her stomach fluttering with nerves. She'd cooked for her father's farmhands before marriage, and for Thomas's few guests, but never for ranch hands. Cowboys had reputations for being rough, crude men. The kitchen door swung open before she could knock. Cole stood there, his hair damp from washing, wearing clean work clothes and the same serious expression. "You're up. Good. Come meet the men before they head out." 4 cowboys sat around a large table in what was clearly the crew's dining area, separate from the main house's kitchen, but connected by a breezeway. They stood when Sarah entered, removing their hats in a gesture of respect that surprised her. "This is Mrs. Whitmore," Cole said simply. "She'll be cooking for us now. You treat her with respect or you'll answer to me. Clear?" A chorus of "Yes, boss" followed. Cole introduced them quickly. Old Pete, the grizzled foreman with a white mustache, Jake and Tom, brothers barely out of their teens, and a lean, dark-skinned man named Isaiah, who met her eyes directly with a nod that felt like acceptance. "What can you make?" Isaiah asked, his voice thoughtful. Sarah looked at the kitchen, a good cast-iron stove, shelves stocked with basics, a smokehouse visible through the window. "Give me 2 hours, and I'll show you." Cole's mouth quirked. "You heard the lady. Get to work. Breakfast when you get back from checking the fence line." After they filed out, Cole lingered. "Storerooms there. Root cellars outside. Use what you need. There's beef hanging in the smokehouse, chickens in the coop. Isaiah tends a garden, so there's vegetables. Don't be shy about it." "You really trust me with all this?" Sarah asked, looking at the well-stocked shelves. "You'll prove yourself one way or another." He picked up his hat. I'll be working the north pasture if you need anything. Pete knows where everything is if you have questions." He paused at the door. "And Sarah, thank you for giving this a chance." He was gone before she could respond to the use of her first name, or the warmth it generated in her chest. Sarah rolled up her sleeves and got to work. She found flour, lard, salt, and baking powder, enough to make proper biscuits. Eggs from the henhouse, still warm. Thick-cut bacon in the smokehouse, and cream that was probably intended for coffee. Her hands moved with the confidence of muscle memory, mixing dough, stoking the fire to the right temperature, slicing bacon to fry. 2 hours later, when the men returned dusty and hungry, the table groaned with food. Fluffy biscuits split and filled with bacon and fried eggs, a pot of thick gravy, fried potatoes with onions, and coffee so strong it could wake the dead. The silence when they started eating was more eloquent than words. Then old Pete looked up with something like reverence. "Ma'am, I ain't had biscuits like these since my mama died 30 years ago." "Marry me," Tom blurted, then turned red as a beet when his brother elbowed him. Sorry, ma'am. Just these are really good." Cole, who'd entered quietly and taken a seat at the far end, ate slowly, methodically. But Sarah saw the tension leave his shoulders. When he finished, he met her eyes across the table. "You'll do just fine, Mrs. Whitmore. Just fine." Something in his tone made her blush. Pride, maybe, at having passed some test she hadn't known she was taking. The days fell into a rhythm. Sarah woke before dawn to start breakfast, packed lunches for the men, cooked dinner in the afternoon. Between meals, she cleaned the kitchen, tended the garden with Isaiah's guidance, and slowly began to make the cabin her own, with wildflowers in a jar and curtains she sewed from fabric Cole provided without asking. The men were respectful, even protective. Old Pete told her stories while she kneaded bread. The brothers competed to bring her the best vegetables from the garden. Isaiah taught her to identify edible plants and showed her where the wild strawberries grew. But it was Cole who occupied her thoughts. He ate with the crew, but rarely spoke during meals, letting the others' chatter fill the space. He worked harder than any of them, up before dawn, last to come in at night. Sometimes she caught him watching her as she moved through the kitchen, his expression unreadable. 2 weeks after her arrival, a summer storm rolled in during dinner. The men hurried to secure the animals, leaving Sarah to clean up alone. She was scrubbing the last pot when Cole reappeared, soaked to the skin. "Everyone settled," he said, water dripping from his hat brim. "Storm's getting worse. You should stay in the main house tonight. That cabin of yours doesn't have the best roof." "It's been fine," Sarah protested, but a crack of thunder made her jump. Cole's mouth almost smiled. "It'll be finer when I patch it tomorrow. But tonight, there's a guest room upstairs. You'll be safe and dry. People will talk." The words came automatically, the rules of her old life. "People can go to hell." His voice was flat. "You're under my protection, and that means I keep you safe. From storms, from gossip, from anything else. Understood?" Sarah had never heard anyone speak about protecting her as if it were a simple fact, not a favor she owed them for. Understood. The guest room was larger than her entire cabin, with a real bed and clean linens. Sarah changed into the nightgown Cole's housekeeper had left. His sister visited monthly and kept the house stocked with necessities, and lay listening to the storm rage outside. Sleep wouldn't come. Every crack of thunder made her remember Thomas dying, his fever-hot skin under her hands, his last rattling breath. Every flash of lightning showed the shadows of her father-in-law, trying to force his way into her room, claiming she owed the family a son. Every howl of wind carried the echo of her own screams when they dragged her to town to auction off everything she'd thought was hers. A knock at the door made her bolt upright. "Sarah, you all right in there?" Cole's voice, rough with concern. She realized she'd been crying, silent tears that had turned to sobs without her noticing. "I'm fine," she called, but her voice broke on the words. The door opened, unlocked because this was a house where people were safe. Cole stood in the doorway in a nightshirt and pants, his hair loose around his shoulders, looking more human than she'd ever seen him. "You're not fine. What's wrong?" "Nothing. Everything. I don't know." Sarah wrapped her arms around herself. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't. You've been so kind, and I'm traumatized," Cole said quietly, moving into the room. He sat in the chair by the window, keeping distance between them. "You've been through hell, Sarah. You don't have to pretend otherwise here." "You lost people too," she whispered. "You don't fall apart." His laugh was bitter. "You didn't see me the first year after Mary died. Pete had to force me to eat. Isaiah stopped me from drinking myself to death. The twins, they were just kids then, but they kept showing up, kept needing me to give them work and purpose. They saved my life by making me responsible for theirs." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Grief doesn't have a timeline, Sarah, and it doesn't make you weak to feel it." "I don't miss Thomas," she admitted, the secret she barely acknowledged to herself. "I feel guilty because I don't miss him. He was kind, in his way, but weak. He couldn't protect me from his family, couldn't protect himself from fever. And I just feel angry. Angry that I'm only 24 years old, and my life is over before it started." "Your life isn't over." Cole's voice was firm. "It's just beginning in a different way than you planned. That's not the same thing." Lightning flashed, illuminating his face, the scar through his eyebrow, the strong jaw, the eyes that had seen too much but hadn't turned hard. Sarah found herself saying, "Tell me about her, about Mary." Cole was silent so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, she was sunshine, laughed at everything, saw the good in people even when they didn't deserve it. She wanted a house full of kids, got pregnant right away after we married. She was so happy, Sarah, so damn happy. His voice cracked. The fever came on fast. Baby was breech, and by the time we got the doctor here, he could save one of them, maybe, not both. Mary told him to save the baby. He stood abruptly, walking to the window. She died holding our daughter, and the baby only lived 3 hours, just long enough for me to name her, Emma, and watch her take her last breath. Sarah stood without thinking, crossed the room, and put her hand on his back. He tensed, but didn't pull away. "I'm sorry. Cole, I'm so sorry. I'm not telling you for sympathy." He turned, and his face was raw with old pain. "I'm telling you because you need to know. Life is brutal and unfair, and it takes things from us that we'll never get back. But it also gives us chances we don't expect. I didn't think I'd ever feel anything again after they died. I was just going through motions, working the ranch because it was there, because the men needed jobs, because moving forward was easier than stopping." "What changed?" Sarah whispered. "I saw a widow with a broken wagon and a straight spine, too proud to beg, but too smart not to take help when it was offered." His hand came up, almost touching her face, before dropping away. "You remind me that I'm still alive, Sarah. that there's more to existence than just surviving day to day. The air between them felt charged, electric, like the storm outside. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs. "Cole, Go to bed," he said gently, stepping back. "This storm will blow itself out by morning. Everything looks different in daylight." He was gone before she could protest, the door clicking softly behind him. Sarah stood alone in the guest room, her hand pressed to her chest, where her heart still raced, and knew that something fundamental had shifted between them. She just wasn't sure either of them was ready for what that meant. July heat settled over the ranch like a heavy blanket. Sarah's days blurred into a comfortable routine, cooking, cleaning, tending the garden, and slowly learning the rhythms of ranch life. The men treated her like a respected member of the crew now, not just hired help. Old Pete showed her how to identify which cattle were healthy and which needed attention. The twins taught her to ride, tentatively at first, on the gentlest mare, but gradually with more confidence. Isaiah became her closest friend, sharing his knowledge of plants and quiet observations about human nature. "Boss is different since you came," he remarked one afternoon as they picked tomatoes together. Sarah kept her eyes on the vines. "How so?" "Smiles more, talks more, actually comes in for dinner on time instead of working until dark and eating cold beans in his office." Isaiah's dark eyes were knowing. "Looks at you like a man waking up from a long sleep." "Isaiah, I'm not gossiping, Mrs. Whitmore. I'm just observing." He handed her a perfect tomato, still warm from the sun. "Question is, are you going to let yourself wake up too? Or are you going to keep pretending you're still grieving a marriage that was never real?" The truth of it stung, because Sarah had been asking herself the same question. She thought about Thomas less and less. When she did, it was with sadness for what might have been, not grief for what was lost. But she thought about Cole constantly, the way he moved, the rare sound of his laugh, the feeling of safety when he was near. That evening, as she was closing up the kitchen, Cole appeared in the doorway. "Got something to show you. You got a minute?" Curious, Sarah followed him away from the house, past the barn and up a small rise she'd never explored. At the top, he stopped and gestured. "Look!" The valley spread below them, painted gold and crimson by the setting sun. The ranch buildings looked small and perfect, like a child's toys. Beyond them, the prairie rolled away to distant mountains, vast and beautiful and wild. "This is why I stayed," Cole said quietly. "After Mary died, I thought about selling everything, moving somewhere I wouldn't see her ghost in every corner. But I came up here one night, and I remembered she loved this view. Said it made her feel like anything was possible." He glanced at Sarah. Figured she'd want me to stay, to build something here, to keep believing in possibilities. "It's beautiful," Sarah breathed. "I come up here when I need to think." Cole turned to face her fully. "Been doing a lot of thinking lately." Sarah's pulse quickened. "About what?" "About the fact that you've been here almost 2 months, and I still don't know anything real about you except you cook like an angel and work harder than most men I've hired." His eyes were intense, searching. "Tell me something true, Sarah. Something that matters." The request caught her off guard. She looked out at the valley, gathering her thoughts. "I wanted to be a teacher. Before my father arranged my marriage to Thomas, I was studying, reading every book I could get my hands on, learning mathematics and history. I thought I'd teach in a town school, have a classroom full of children, make a difference." She laughed bitterly. "My father said education was wasted on women, that my job was to marry well and produce sons. Thomas's family had money, or we thought they did. So the marriage was arranged. I was 18. I didn't even know I could say no. Cole's jaw tightened. And Thomas, what was he like? Weak, Sarah said simply. Not cruel, but not strong either. He let his father control everything, including me. When the debts came out after he died, I realized our entire marriage had been built on lies. The money was gone, gambled away by his father. The house wasn't ours. Even my wedding ring was paste. She twisted the thin gold band still on her finger. This is the only thing I kept that's real. Thomas gave it to me the night before he died. Said it was his mother's. Said he was sorry for everything. Do you still love him? Cole asked quietly. Sarah considered the question honestly. I don't think I ever did. I cared for him, felt sorry for him. But love, real love, I don't think I knew what that was supposed to feel like. She met Cole's eyes. Do you still love Mary? Always will, in a way. His answer was immediate, honest. But that love is like this valley at sunset. Beautiful, but fading. Making room for something new. He took a step closer. Sarah, I need to tell you something. This isn't going to be easy to hear. Her stomach dropped. What is it? I don't just own this ranch. I own half the valley. 5,000 acres, stretching from here to the mountains. I've got holdings in town, investments in the railroad, mining interests up north. He gestured at the view. The men don't know the full extent of it. They know I'm successful, but not how much. Sarah frowned, confused. Why are you telling me this? Because when I met you on that road, you thought I was just a rancher who needed a cook. And I let you think that because I wanted. He stopped, searching for words. I wanted someone to see me as just Cole. Not Cole Bennett, the richest man in 3 counties. Not the widower everyone pities or wants to match with their daughters. Just me. Understanding dawned slowly. That's why you live so simply. Why the crew doesn't realize. I pay them well, treat them fair, but I don't flaunt what I have. After Mary died, I realized how many people had only been close to me because of money. How many of her so-called friends disappeared when she was sick because they couldn't profit from knowing us anymore. His voice was bitter, so I kept it quiet. Built the ranch, invested wisely, but lived like any other working cowboy. Sarah thought about the simple cabin, the plain clothes, the way he worked alongside his men. And you thought I'd treat you differently if I knew? Wouldn't you? Cole challenged. If I'd ridden up that first night in fancy clothes, on an expensive horse, offering you a job because I was rich and charitable? Wouldn't you have hated me a little, felt like you were taking charity instead of earning your place? He was right, and they both knew it. Sarah would have felt like a beggar, not an employee. Would have resented his wealth while desperately needing his help. So what changed? Why tell me now? Cole took another step closer, near enough that she could see the gold flecks in his brown eyes. Because I'm falling in love with you, Sarah Whitmore, and I don't want there to be lies between us, even lies of omission. You deserve to know the truth before anything else happens. The world seemed to tilt. Sarah's breath caught in her chest. Cole, you don't have to say anything, he said quickly. I know it's too soon. I know you're still healing from everything you've been through. But I needed you to know that when I look at you, I see... He stopped, emotion roughening his voice. I see a woman worth building a life with. Not because you're convenient, or because I'm lonely, but because you're strong and smart and brave. Because you make me want to be better than I am. Sarah's hands were shaking. I'm not brave. I ran away. I was ready to die on that road. And then you fought to survive. Cole interrupted. You took a chance on a stranger. You've worked harder than anyone I know, never complained, never asked for more than you earned. That's courage, Sarah. Real courage. The widow cooked for a stranger by the road, Sarah whispered, remembering that first night, the broken wagon, the moment everything changed. She didn't know he owned half the valley. Cole smiled, a real smile, warm and genuine. Would it have mattered? Sarah thought about it honestly, about the man who'd offered her water before asking questions, who'd given her work, not charity, who'd shared his grief and listened to hers, who treated her like a person, not property. No, she said finally, the money doesn't matter. You could have been a drifter with nothing but a horse, and I still would have. Still what? Cole asked softly, hope lighting his face. Still found myself thinking about you when I should have been sleeping. Still caught myself looking for you during the day. Still felt safe for the first time in my life when you're near. The confession tumbled out, words she'd been holding back for weeks. I don't know if it's love. I don't know if I even know what love is supposed to feel like. But I know that when I imagine leaving here, leaving you, it feels like dying. Cole's hands came up to cup her face, his calloused palms gentle against her skin. Then don't leave. Stay. Not as hired help, not because you have nowhere else to go. Stay because you want to see where this goes, because you feel this thing between us too. I'm still married, Sarah breathed. Legally, I mean. Thomas has only been dead 2 months. I'll wait, Cole said immediately. A year, 2 years, however long it takes for you to be ready. I'm not going anywhere, Sarah, and neither are you if I have anything to say about it. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. When his lips touched hers, it was gentle, questioning, nothing like Thomas's awkward kisses or his father's forced attempts. This was warmth and promise and possibility. Sarah's hands came up to grip his shirt, pulling him closer, and the kiss deepened into something that made her whole body sing. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Cole rested his forehead against hers. Tell me you feel it too, he whispered. Tell me I'm not crazy. You're not crazy, Sarah assured him, her voice shaky with emotion. I feel it. I'm terrified of it, but I feel it. Good. He kissed her forehead, then her cheeks, then captured her mouth again in a kiss that promised everything. Because I'm terrified too, but I think it's the good kind of fear, the kind that means something real is starting. They stood there as the sun set completely, wrapped in each other's arms, while the valley below them faded into twilight. Sarah felt something inside her chest that she'd thought was permanently broken start to heal. Not completely. She still had scars, still had nightmares, still had moments when the past grabbed her throat. But for the first time since Thomas died, maybe for the first time in her life, she felt hope. And standing in the circle of Cole Bennett's arms, looking out at the valley that would maybe, possibly, someday be hers too, Sarah let herself believe in possibilities again. The next morning, Sarah woke early as usual, but everything felt different. The light through her cabin window seemed brighter, the birdsong sweeter. Even the routine of starting the stove and mixing biscuit dough felt like a gift instead of a chore. She caught herself humming while she cooked, something she hadn't done since childhood. Old Pete noticed immediately when the crew came in for breakfast. Someone's in a good mood, he observed, his eyes twinkling. Sarah blushed, but didn't deny it. It's a beautiful morning. Sure is, Isaiah said, his tone knowing. Boss seemed pretty cheerful too when he left for town before dawn. Said something about business to handle. The mention of Cole made Sarah's heart skip. She'd half convinced herself last night had been a dream. The sunset conversation, the kiss, the promises. But the warmth in her chest was real, and so was the slight tenderness of her lips from Cole's kisses. Tom and Jake exchanged glances, but wisely said nothing, focusing on their breakfast with the single-minded intensity of young men who knew better than to tease. Cole returned mid-morning, riding up to the house with a leather satchel strapped to his saddle. He found Sarah in the garden, picking green beans for dinner, her skirts dusty and her hair escaping its bun. "Got a minute?" he asked, dismounting. Sarah's pulse quickened at the sight of him, tall and solid and real in the bright sunlight. Of course. He led her away from the garden to a quiet spot by the barn, where curious eyes couldn't watch. "I went to see Judge Harrison in town. Had him look up some information." Sarah's stomach clenched. "And his father tried to claim you owed the family after Thomas died?" The memory made her feel sick. "He said I owed them a son, that I was property that came with the debt." Cole's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. "That's not legal. Not even close. Judge Harrison confirmed it. You don't owe Thomas's family anything. The debts died with him, and you were never responsible for them in the first place." He held out the papers. "This is a statement from the judge saying exactly that. If anyone from that family comes looking for you, they have no legal claim." Sarah took the papers with shaking hands. "Why would you do this?" "Because you've been looking over your shoulder since you got here," Cole said gently. "I see it when strangers come to the ranch, or when the mail comes. You flinch, like you expect someone to drag you back to that life." He cupped her face. "No one's dragging you anywhere, Sarah. You're free, legally and actually free. I wanted you to have proof." Tears stung her eyes. "I don't know how to thank you." "Don't thank me. Just believe it." His thumb brushed away a tear that had escaped. "You're not anyone's property. You're your own person. And if you choose to be with me, it's because you want to be, not because you need to be, not because you have nowhere else to go. Choice, Sarah. You deserve to have choices." The gift of it overwhelmed her. Thomas had never fought about her choices. Her father certainly hadn't. But Cole had ridden to town before dawn to give her legal proof of her freedom. "I choose you," she whispered. "I choose this. I choose to stay and see where this goes, because I want to. Not because I'm afraid or desperate, but because when I'm with you, I feel like the person I was always meant to be." Cole's smile was like sunrise breaking. He kissed her there in the shadow of the barn. A kiss that was different from last night's. Less tentative, more sure. A kiss that tasted like freedom and promise and the beginning of something real. "Good," he murmured against her lips, "because I'm not letting you go, Mrs. Whitmore. Not now, not ever, if I have any say in it." The rest of the summer unfolded like a flower opening. Cole taught Sarah to ride better, taking her out on evening rides to explore the ranch. She learned to rope, to identify cattle by their markings, to predict weather by watching the sky. The twins taught her to shoot. "Every woman out here should know how to protect herself," Jake insisted. And she turned out to be a natural shot, much to everyone's surprise. Isaiah showed her the medicinal plants growing wild on the property, teaching her which ones helped with fever, which ones eased pain. "Out here, you can't always get to a doctor," he explained. "Knowledge like this saves lives." Old Pete regaled her with stories of the ranch's history, of Cole's father who'd started the spread with nothing but determination and luck. of Mary who'd planted the rose bushes by the house that still bloomed despite no one tending them. "Boss lets them grow wild now," Pete told her one evening as they watched the sunset. "Says Mary would have wanted them free, not pruned into submission." Sarah found herself caring for the roses anyway, not pruning, but watering, removing dead blooms, letting them flourish. Cole noticed, but said nothing, just watched her with those warm eyes that made her feel seen and cherished. Their relationship deepened in stolen moments, kisses in the barn, hands held under the dinner table, late-night conversations on the porch after everyone else had gone to bed. Cole was patient, never pushing for more than Sarah was ready to give. When she woke screaming from nightmares about Thomas's father, Cole was there, sitting outside her cabin, keeping watch until she fell back asleep. "You don't have to do that," she protested one night, finding him on her porch at 2 in the morning. "I know." His voice was simple, factual, "but I sleep better knowing you're safe." They talked about everything, childhoods and dreams, losses and hopes, the people they'd been and the people they wanted to become. Cole told her about his father's death when he was 20, leaving him a ranch he barely knew how to run. About the years of learning by failing, of building something sustainable, of the loneliness that had become so familiar he'd stopped noticing it until Mary came along. "She taught me how to live again after my father died," he said. "I was just working, just surviving. She made everything matter, made me see the beauty in ordinary things, the way light hits the grass in the morning, the sound of cattle settling for the night, the taste of coffee shared with someone you love." "Do you think she'd approve?" Sarah asked quietly. "Of me, I mean, of us." Cole was silent for a long moment. "Mary wanted me to be happy. She made me promise, the night before she died, when we both knew she wasn't going to make it. She made me promise I'd find someone else eventually. Said she'd haunt me if I spent the rest of my life alone." His voice roughened. "I told her I'd never love anyone the way I loved her. She said that was fine, that different loves are just different, not less." "She was wise," Sarah said. "She was." Cole pulled Sarah closer, her head resting on his chest. "And she was right. What I feel for you isn't the same as what I felt for Mary. It's different, deeper in some ways, because I know now how fragile happiness is, how quickly it can be taken away. With Mary, I was young and thought we'd have forever. With you, I know forever isn't guaranteed, so I appreciate every moment we have." Sarah tilted her face up to kiss him, tasting the salt of his old grief and her own gratitude. "Let's not waste moments," she whispered. That night, Cole stayed on her porch until dawn, and Sarah slept dreamlessly for the first time in months, comforted by the knowledge that someone was standing guard over her happiness. August brought with it the harvest season and extra work. The men were up before dawn and worked until dark, bringing in hay, preparing for fall roundup, fixing fences and buildings before winter. Sarah worked just as hard, cooking larger meals, packing more lunches, helping where she could with the physical labor. One afternoon, while the men were in the far pasture, Sarah was alone in the kitchen when a stranger rode up to the house. He was tall and lean, well-dressed in city clothes that looked out of place on the prairie. Something about his face made Sarah's blood run cold. He had Thomas's eyes. "You must be Sarah," the man said, removing his hat as he stepped onto the porch. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "I'm Robert Whitmore, Thomas's older brother. Sarah's hand moved instinctively to the kitchen knife she'd been using to cut vegetables. "What do you want?" Robert's smile widened, predatory. "Direct. I like that. My father said you had spirit." He looked around at the ranch appreciatively. "Done well for yourself, haven't you? 2 months after my brother dies, here you are, thriving. And you're already set up with a rich rancher. Very resourceful." "I work here," Sarah said coldly. "I cook for the crew." "Of course you do." Robert's tone was knowing, insulting. "Look, I'm not here to cause trouble. I just want what's owed to the family. You were married to Thomas. That makes his debts your debts. Unless you've already paid them off with your new employment." The insinuation made Sarah's hands shake with rage. "I don't owe your family anything. I have legal documents that say so." "Legal documents?" Robert laughed. "From some backwater judge? Sarah, we're talking about $5,000, my father's debts. You think you can just walk away from that?" "I think I can, and I will." Sarah gripped the knife harder. "Your brother is dead. Your father's debts aren't mine. Now get off this property before I call the men." "The men are miles away," Robert said pleasantly, moving closer. "And $5,000 is a lot to give up, Sarah. But I'm reasonable. We could make another arrangement. You're young, attractive. My father isn't the only Whitmore who could use a wife." The kitchen door slammed open. Cole stood there, and Sarah had never seen him look so dangerous. His hand rested on the gun at his hip, and his eyes were cold as winter. "The lady told you to leave," Cole said, his voice deadly quiet. "I suggest you do it, now." Robert sized him up, saw the gun, the hard eyes, the protective stance, and recalculated. "You must be Bennett. I heard you took in my brother's widow. Very charitable of you. Sarah works here because she's the best cook in 3 counties and I needed help," Cole said flatly. "But even if that wasn't true, she'd still be under my protection. And that means when she tells someone to leave, they leave." "Oh, I'm just trying to settle family business. Your family has no business with Sarah." Cole's hand didn't move from his gun. "Judge Harrison made that clear in writing. Your father's debts died with him. Your brother's debts died with him. And any claim you think you have on Sarah died the moment I found her on that road and offered her sanctuary." Robert's face flushed with anger. "You can't just—" "I can, and I will." Cole stepped forward, and there was something in his movement that made Robert step back instinctively. "This is my land. Sarah is my employee and under my protection. You rode onto my property without permission and threatened a woman under my care. Out here, that's grounds for shooting, and no law would question it. You wouldn't. Try me." Cole's eyes were chips of ice. "You've got 10 seconds to get on that horse and ride away. After that, I stop being polite." Robert looked between them, saw the steel in Cole's gaze, and the knife still gripped in Sarah's hand. "This isn't over," he said finally. "My father won't let this go." "Your father can take it up with Judge Harrison," Cole said, "or with me directly. Either way, the answer will be the same. Sarah owes you nothing. Now get off my land before I forget I'm a civilized man." Robert mounted his horse quickly. All pretense of civility dropped. "You'll regret this, Bennett. Both of you." He spurred his horse and galloped away, dust rising in his wake. The moment he was out of sight, Sarah's legs gave out. She would have fallen if Cole hadn't caught her, pulling her against his chest. She dropped the knife, her hands shaking violently. "He knows where I am," she gasped. "He'll tell his father. They'll come back." "Let them come," Cole said fiercely. "Sarah, look at me." He tilted her face up, his hands gentle, despite the anger still radiating from him. "No one is taking you anywhere. I don't care if they bring the whole family and a lawyer. You're staying here, and I'll fight anyone who says different." "You can't fight a whole family. Watch me." His voice was flat with determination. "Sarah, do you trust me?" She looked into his eyes and found the answer immediately. "Yes." "Then trust that I will keep you safe. Trust that I have the resources and the connections to make sure the Whitmore family never bothers you again." He kissed her forehead. "Trust that you're mine now, and I protect what's mine." The possessiveness in his voice should have frightened her. Thomas had been possessive in a way that felt suffocating. But Cole's possession felt different. Not like ownership, but like belonging. Like being claimed by someone who saw her as a partner, not property. "Together," she whispered, remembering the word from their first night. "Together," Cole agreed. "You and me against whatever comes." He held her until her shaking stopped, then helped her back to her feet. "I'm riding into town to talk to Judge Harrison and the sheriff. Pete will stay here with you. I'll send him up to the house. You're not to be alone until this is settled. Understood?" Sarah nodded, hating that she needed protection, but grateful Cole wasn't too proud to provide it. "And Sarah," Cole paused at the door, "start thinking about what you want your future to look like. Because I'm done being patient and proper. I'm done pretending this is just an employer-employee relationship. The Whitmores want to make claims on you? Fine. I'll make my own claim first." He was gone before she could ask what he meant, leaving her standing in the kitchen with her heart pounding and hope warring with fear in her chest. The next week was tense. Cole returned from town with the sheriff and Judge Harrison, who took Sarah's statement and documented Robert's threats. Legal papers were drawn up making it clear that Sarah Whitmore née Brennan had no financial or legal obligations to the Whitmore family. The judge even went so far as to issue a restraining order preventing any Whitmore from coming within 10 miles of the Bennett Ranch. "That should do it," Judge Harrison told Sarah kindly. He was an older man with wise eyes and a grandfatherly manner. "But Mrs. Whitmore, if you're concerned about future harassment, there's a simpler solution." "What's that?" Sarah asked. The judge glanced at Cole, who stood behind Sarah with his hand on her shoulder. "You could remarry. New marriage, new name, new legal identity. The Whitmores would have no claim whatsoever on Mrs. Bennett." The silence that followed was profound. Sarah felt Cole's hand tighten on her shoulder. "That's a big step," Cole said carefully. "Sarah and we've discussed the possibility, but Thomas has only been dead 4 months. People would talk." "People always talk," Judge Harrison said bluntly, "but out here, survival matters more than propriety. If the lady is willing and you're willing, I could conduct a ceremony right now, private, legal, and final. Then the Whitmores would have no leg to stand on legally or morally." Sarah turned to look at Cole. His face was carefully neutral, giving nothing away. "Is that what you want?" she asked quietly. "To marry me because it's legally convenient?" "No." The word was immediate, fierce. Cole pulled her around to face him fully. "I want to marry you because I love you. Because I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep holding you every night. Because you've become the best part of my life, and I can't imagine going back to existing without you." "But," Sarah prompted, hearing the hesitation. "But I don't want you to feel forced," Cole said. "I don't want you to say yes because you're scared of the Whitmores, or because it's practical, or because you feel like you owe me. If we're going to do this, it has to be because you want it as much as I do." Sarah looked at the man in front of her, the man who'd stopped for a stranger on the road, who'd given her work instead of charity, respect instead of pity. Ood made her laugh again, made her feel safe, made her believe in possibilities she'd thought were dead. She thought about Thomas, who she'd married out of duty, about the life she'd lived in fear and obligation, about the person she'd been, small, scared, voiceless. And then she thought about who she'd become in 4 months on the Bennett Ranch. Stronger, braver, someone who could ride and shoot and stand up for herself. Someone who laughed easily and slept without nightmares when Cole was near. "Ask me," she said quietly. Cole's eyes widened. "Sarah, ask me properly," she insisted. "Not because it's convenient or because a judge suggested it. Ask me because you mean it." Cole dropped to one knee right there in Judge Harrison's office. He took Sarah's hands in his, and she could feel them trembling slightly. "Sarah Brennan Whitmore," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I know we haven't known each other long. I know you've been through hell and probably need more time to heal. But I also know that you're the strongest, bravest, most incredible woman I've ever met. You make me want to be better. You make me believe in second chances." He pulled something from his pocket, a simple gold band, not fancy, but real. "This was my mother's ring. My father gave it to her when they had nothing but a wagon and a dream. She wore it for 40 years, through droughts and floods, and every hardship the prairie could throw at them. She told me before she died to give it to someone who understood that marriage isn't about easy times. It's about facing hard times together." Tears were streaming down Sarah's face now. "Cole, will you marry me, Sarah? Not because it's practical or convenient, but because I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my life making you as happy as you've made me." Sarah looked down at him, this good man, this strong man who wasn't afraid to be vulnerable. She thought about the question he'd asked. What did she want her future to look like? And she realized the answer was simple. "Yes," she said, her voice clear and sure. "Yes, I'll marry you. Not because I'm scared or because I need protection, but because I love you too, because you've given me my life back, and I want to spend it with you." Cole surged to his feet and kissed her, deep and thorough, until Judge Harrison cleared his throat pointedly. "Should I take that as a yes?" the judge asked, amused. "Take it as a hell yes," Cole said, grinning wider than Sarah had ever seen. He slipped the ring on her finger. It fit perfectly, like it was meant to be there. "When can we do this?" "Right now, if you'd like," Judge Harrison said. "I'll need witnesses." "I'll get Pete and Isaiah," Cole said. "Sarah, you sure about this? We can wait. Have a proper ceremony." "I'm sure," Sarah interrupted. "I don't need proper. I just need you." 20 minutes later, Sarah Whitmore became Sarah Bennett in a simple ceremony in Judge Harrison's office, with old Pete crying openly and Isaiah grinning like he'd known this would happen all along. The sheriff served as the second witness and signed the certificate with a flourish. "Congratulations, Mrs. Bennett," Judge Harrison said warmly. "May you have many happy years together." Cole kissed his bride again, slower this time, full of promise. "Ready to go home, Mrs. Bennett?" "Home," Sarah repeated, testing the word. It felt right in a way nothing ever had before. "Yes, let's go home." They rode back to the ranch together, Cole's arms around Sarah as she sat in front of him on his horse, just like that first night. But everything different now. The sun was setting over the valley, painting everything gold and crimson, and Sarah thought about how much had changed since she'd stood on this road with a broken wagon and a broken heart. "What are you thinking?" Cole asked, his breath warm against her ear. "That I'm grateful for broken wheels," Sarah said. For storms and strangers and second chances. For widows who can cook, Cole added, his voice warm with amusement. Sarah laughed, a real laugh, joyful and free. For ranchers who are secretly rich but too stubborn to act like it. For women brave enough to start over, Cole said, serious now. For men brave enough to love again, Sarah countered. They were quiet for a moment, just riding through the fading light. Then Cole said, "That first night, when I found you on the road, I didn't tell you everything about why I stopped." "No?" Sarah tilted her head to look at him. "I'd been up on the ridge, thinking about selling the ranch, about giving up on the whole thing because what was the point of building an empire with no one to share it with?" He tightened his arms around her. "Then I saw you, this stubborn woman with a broken wagon and too much pride to ask for help. And something in me just woke up, like Mary's ghost whispered in my ear. Pay attention, Cole, this one matters." "Do you think she sent me?" Sarah asked quietly. "No." Cole kissed the top of her head. "I think life sent you. The universe sent you. Fate sent you. I don't know what to call it, but I know it was meant to happen. You and me. This." Sarah settled back against his chest, watching the ranch buildings come into view. Lights were being lit for the evening. Smoke curled from the bunkhouse chimney, and everything looked warm and welcoming. Home. "Together," she said softly. "Together," Cole agreed. "From now until forever ends." When they reached the house, the crew was waiting on the porch. Somehow, word had spread already. Tom and Jake were grinning like fools. Pete was still dabbing at his eyes, and Isaiah held a bottle of whiskey he'd clearly liberated from somewhere. "Congratulations, boss. Mrs. Bennett," Tom called out. "About damn time," Jake added, earning an elbow from his brother. Old Pete stepped forward, his weathered face serious despite his tears. "Mrs. Bennett, we just want you to know, we're family here. You've always been family, but now it's official. Anyone who messes with you messes with all of us." "Damn straight," Isaiah added. "You're stuck with us now, ma'am." Sarah felt tears pricking her eyes again. "Thank you, all of you, for welcoming me, for teaching me, for making me feel like I belong here." "You do belong here," Cole said firmly, his arm around her waist. "And anyone who says different will answer to me." The party that followed was simple but joyful. Isaiah's whiskey passed around, Pete pulling out a fiddle Sarah hadn't known he could play, the twins dancing and making everyone laugh. Cole pulled Sarah into his arms for a dance in the dusty yard, under stars that seemed brighter than usual. "Happy?" he asked, his forehead pressed to hers. "Happier than I ever thought I could be," Sarah admitted. "Scared too. Is that normal?" "Terrified," Cole agreed. "But it's the good kind of fear, the kind that means you're really living, not just surviving." "Then I'm living," Sarah said, and kissed her husband under the stars while their family, because that's what the crew had become, cheered and whistled and celebrated the beginning of something beautiful. Later, after the party wound down and the crew retired to the bunkhouse, Cole walked Sarah to the main house. They stood on the porch, suddenly awkward despite the rings on their fingers. "I don't expect," Cole started. "I know," Sarah interrupted. "Cole, I'm not afraid of you. I want—" She took a breath. "I want this to be a real marriage, not just on paper. I want everything that comes with it." Cole's eyes darkened. "Sarah, we don't have to rush." "I'm not rushing." She took his hands, pressing them to her heart so he could feel how it raced. "I'm choosing. Remember, you said I deserve choices. Well, I choose you. I choose this. I choose us." Cole searched her face, making sure. Whatever he saw there satisfied him, because he swept her into his arms, literally lifting her off her feet, and carried her inside. "Then I choose you too, Mrs. Bennet, today and every day after." The door closed behind them, and the house that had been silent with grief for so long filled with laughter and love and the sound of two people healing each other, one moment at a time. The next morning, Sarah woke, wrapped in Cole's arms, sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows. For a moment, she panicked. Where was she? Why was someone holding her? Then memory returned in a warm rush. The wedding, the party, the night that followed, where Cole had been so careful, so gentle, treating her like something precious. "You're awake," Cole murmured, his voice sleep-rough. "How do you feel?" Sarah considered the question. Her body ached in new ways, but her heart felt lighter than it had in years. "Different," she said finally. "Good different. Like I'm finally in my own skin." Cole kissed her shoulder, her neck, her cheek. "We should probably get up. The crew will need breakfast, and if we don't show our faces, they'll come looking." "Let them look," Sarah said boldly, then blushed at her own daring. Cole laughed, a real laugh, joyful and free. "Mrs. Bennet, are you trying to scandalize the ranch hands?" "Maybe a little," Sarah admitted. She turned in his arms to face him, taking in the sight of him, with his hair mussed and his eyes warm. "Is it always like that, between husband and wife?" "No." Cole's answer was immediate, serious. "It's not. What we have, Sarah, that's rare. That's the kind of thing people spend their whole lives looking for." "We found it in 4 months," Sarah marveled. "We found it in 4 seconds, Cole corrected. "That first moment on the road, when our eyes met, I knew then. Didn't want to admit it, but I knew. You were going to change everything." Sarah kissed him, slow and thorough, making promises with her mouth that her words couldn't quite capture. When they finally made it downstairs, dressed and somewhat presentable, the crew was already in the kitchen, and they'd cooked breakfast themselves. "Figured you two deserved a morning off," Pete said, his eyes twinkling. "Don't worry, Mrs. Bennet. We cleaned up after ourselves." The kitchen was indeed clean, if a bit chaotic. The biscuits were burned, the bacon overdone, the coffee strong enough to strip paint. But the gesture was so sweet that Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you," she said, hugging Pete impulsively. "Thank you all." The weeks that followed established new rhythms. Sarah moved her few belongings into the main house, claiming the bedroom that had stood empty since Mary's death. Cole had worried it would feel wrong, like replacing his first wife, but Sarah made it hers with small touches that didn't erase Mary's memory, but built around it. The roses Mary had planted got new trellises. The bedroom got new curtains, but kept the quilt Mary had sewn. Sarah found Mary's recipe book and used it, adding her own notes in the margins. "I hope she wouldn't mind," she told Cole one night. "She'd love it," Cole assured her. Mary believed in living women honoring living women. She wouldn't want her things locked away like a shrine. She'd want them used, loved, lived with. Sarah took over managing the household accounts and discovered she had a head for numbers. Cole, who'd been handling everything himself, was relieved to share the burden. They worked together in his office in the evenings, discussing investments and improvements. Partners in every sense. "You're good at this," Cole said one night, watching her organize ledgers with quick efficiency. "I like it," Sarah admitted. "I like feeling useful, like I'm building something, not just surviving." "We're building something," Cole corrected. "Together." It became their word, their promise. Together through late frosts that threatened the garden. together through a difficult birth of a calf that needed round-the-clock care, together through the long nights when Sarah's nightmares returned, and Cole held her until she could breathe again, and together through the moments of joy, the first time Sarah successfully roped a steer, the night they hosted a barn dance for neighboring ranches, the morning Sarah realized she'd gone a full week without thinking about the Whitmores. September arrived with cooler temperatures and the promise of fall. The crew began preparations for the roundup, and Sarah learned to ride well enough to help, not with the heavy work, but with managing the camp, cooking for 20 men instead of 5, organizing supplies. "You're a natural ranch wife," Isaiah observed one evening as they worked together to pack supplies. "I don't know about that," Sarah said, "but I'm learning, and I like it, feeling capable and strong, knowing I can handle whatever comes." "That's the thing about hard times," Isaiah said thoughtfully. "They show you what you're made of. You survived things that would have broken most people, Mrs. Bennett. Now you're thriving. That's not luck, that's character." The roundup was exhausting, exhilarating work. Sarah had never seen Cole in his element like this, commanding the crew with quiet authority, working harder than anyone, solving problems with quick thinking and deep knowledge. She understood why the men respected him, why the ranch prospered under his leadership. One night around the campfire, with the crew bedded down and the cattle settled, Cole pulled Sarah away to a quiet spot under the stars. "What are we doing out here?" Sarah asked, laughing. "Wanted you to myself for a minute," Cole said. He wrapped a blanket around both their shoulders, pulling her back against his chest. "See that constellation there, the big W?" "Cassiopeia," Sarah said, surprising him. "You know the stars? I told you, I wanted to be a teacher. I studied everything I could." Sarah pointed. "There's Ursa Major, Polaris, Cygnus." "Show off," Cole teased, but his voice was warm with admiration. He kissed her temple. "You'd have been an amazing teacher, Sarah." "Maybe I still could be," Sarah said thoughtfully. "The ranch is far from town, but there are families scattered around. Children who don't get much schooling. What if we started something here? A school, maybe just a few days a week." Cole was quiet for a long moment. Then, "That's a good idea. A really good idea. We could use the old barn. It's weatherproof. Just need some work. Get some books, slates, whatever you'd need." "Really?" Sarah twisted to look at him. "You'd do that?" "Sarah, you're not just my wife. You're my partner. If teaching is your dream, then we'll make it happen." He kissed her. "Besides, educated neighbors make for a better community. It's good business and good sense." Sarah felt something in her chest expand, a feeling she was coming to recognize as pure happiness. Not the giddy excitement of romance, but something deeper. Contentment, belonging, purpose. "I love you," she said, the words coming easier each time she said them. "I love you too," Cole replied. "More every day. Didn't know that was possible, but you keep surprising me." They sat there under the stars, wrapped in each other and a shared blanket, talking about the future. About the school Sarah would start, the improvements Cole wanted to make to the ranch, the possibility of children someday when they were both ready. "You'd be a good father," Sarah said quietly. Cole tensed slightly. "I was supposed to be a father before. Didn't turn out well." "That wasn't your fault." Sarah took his hand, lacing their fingers together. "What happened to Emma, to Mary, that was tragedy, not failure. You would have been a wonderful father. You will be, if we're blessed that way. Well, and if we're not? Cole asked. Then we'll be happy anyway, Sarah said firmly. We have each other. We have this ranch. We have our crew, who's become family. We have enough, Cole. More than enough. He held her tighter. When did you get so wise? When I stopped being afraid, Sarah said. When I realized that I didn't have to earn my place here, I already belonged. That's what you gave me, Cole. Not just safety or a home. You gave me the confidence to be myself. You did that, Cole corrected. I just gave you the space to do it. They argued about it playfully until the stars wheeled overhead and the fire burned down to embers. Then they returned to camp together, wrapped in their blanket and their love, ready for whatever tomorrow brought. October painted the valley in shades of gold and crimson. The roundup was successful. They'd lost fewer cattle than expected and gained more calves than projected. The ranch was prosperous, the crew was happy, and Sarah's school plans were taking shape. Cole had renovated the old barn with help from the crew, adding windows and a wood stove, building desks and benches. Sarah had written to every family within riding distance, offering free education 3 days a week. The response was overwhelming. 12 children, ranging from age 5 to 14, all hungry for learning. The school opened the first Monday in October. Sarah wore her best dress, her hair neatly pinned, her heart racing with nervous excitement. Cole rode with her to the barn, carrying a crate of books he'd ordered from Denver. You're going to be wonderful, he assured her. What if I'm terrible? Sarah fretted. What if they don't listen? Or I don't know how to… Cole kissed her, stopping the flow of worried words. Sarah Bennett, you faced down my brother-in-law with a knife, rode through a roundup without complaint, and managed to make old Pete cry happy tears. You can handle 12 kids. He was right, of course. The children were eager, well-behaved, thrilled to have a teacher. Sarah taught them reading and writing, basic arithmetic, history and geography. She told them stories and assigned compositions, and made learning feel like an adventure instead of a chore. You're glowing, Cole observed that first night, watching Sarah enthusiastically describe her day over dinner. Am I? Sarah touched her face, then laughed. I guess I am. Cole, it was amazing. These children, they're so smart, so curious. One little girl knew more about plants than I do. A boy who's been helping his father survey land understands geometry better than most adults. They just needed someone to give them the tools and encouragement. Like you needed, Cole said softly. Sarah paused, considering. Yes, like I needed. Maybe that's why I'm good at this. I remember what it felt like to have potential and no outlet for it. The school became the center of Sarah's world, alongside the ranch and Cole. She taught Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, spending the other days managing the household and helping with ranch work. Parents began stopping by to thank her, to ask questions, to see what their children were learning. You're making a difference, Isaiah told her one afternoon. A real difference, not just for the kids, but for the whole community. That night, as Sarah and Cole prepared for bed, she found herself studying him in the lamplight. 3 months married, and she still discovered new things about him daily, like the way he always checked the windows before sleeping, a habit from years of worrying about storms and intruders, or the way he smiled when he thought she wasn't looking, as if he couldn't quite believe she was real. What? Cole asked, catching her stare. Just thinking how lucky I am, Sarah said. 6 months ago, I was ready to die on a dusty road. Now I have a home, a purpose, a husband I love. It feels impossible." "Not impossible," Cole corrected, pulling her into his arms. "Just improbable. But the best things usually are." He kissed her, and Sarah thought about how different these kisses were from Thomas's had been. Thomas had kissed her like he was checking off a duty. Cole kissed her like he was savoring something precious, like every kiss might be the last and also the first. "I want to tell you something," Sarah said, pulling back slightly to meet his eyes. "I'm happy, truly, deeply happy. For the first time in my entire life, I wake up excited for the day instead of dreading it, and it's because of you." Cole's eyes softened. "It's because of us. We saved each other, Sarah." "Together," she whispered, and kissed him again. Winter arrived early that year, bringing snow in late November that transformed the valley into a wonderland of white. The school continued through the cold months, with children arriving bundled in layers, their breath making clouds in the crisp air. Sarah kept the stove burning hot and made cocoa for anyone who looked too frozen. On Christmas Eve, the entire community gathered at the Bennett Ranch for a celebration. Sarah and Cole hosted dinner for 20 families, the house filled with laughter and music and the smell of roasting turkey. Children played in the snow while adults shared stories and warmth around multiple fires. As midnight approached, Cole pulled Sarah onto the porch, away from the crowd. Snow fell softly around them, muffling sound, creating a private world. "I have something for you," he said, producing a small wrapped package. Inside was a leather-bound journal, her name embossed in gold. "Sarah Bennett, teacher. For recording lessons." "Cole, this is not enough," he interrupted gently. "It could never be enough to thank you for what you've given me. But it's a start." Sarah kissed him there in the falling snow, tasting winter and love and promise. "You gave me my life back," she whispered. "You gave me myself back." "Then we're even," Cole said, smiling, "because you did the same for me." They stood together, watching the snow fall over their valley, their ranch, their home. Inside, their family, blood and chosen, celebrated. Outside, the world was peaceful and perfect. "The widow cooked for a stranger by the road," Sarah said softly, remembering. "She didn't know he owned half the valley." "And the stranger gave her a home," Cole finished. "He didn't know she owned his whole heart." Sarah laughed, the sound pure joy. "That's terribly romantic." "You make me romantic," Cole admitted. "You make me believe in happy endings." "Not endings," Sarah corrected, looking up at the man who'd saved her and let her save him in return. "Beginnings. This is just the beginning, Cole Bennett." He kissed her as the church bell in distant town struck midnight, ringing in Christmas and new possibilities. "Then here's to beginnings, Mrs. Bennett. May we have 1,000 of them." And wrapped in each other's arms. With snow falling and stars shining and the future bright with promise, Sarah and Cole began the next chapter of their story. Together, as they would face everything from that moment forward until the end of their days. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're enjoying this tale from. Are you listening at home, during your commute, or perhaps while working? Please subscribe to the From Wild West channel and share your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think of Sarah and Cole's journey? Your feedback means the world to us.